There's this little separation inside of strength coaches and also to this idea behind like sport specific training. And I totally get both sides. One of the biggest things, right, is a lot of people are doing like sport specific training. You'll see some of this crazy stuff on social media, and a lot of coaches will think like, well, if I just put a ball in their hand or I put a glove on them, or, you know, again, they got a basketball or football or baseball, that makes it sport specific. Or maybe it's like they're doing like super randomized reps that are very skill based, and they're like using like crazy setups with like insane instability. They're like trying to balance on bands. They're trying to do all these like crazy things that are like super randomized chaos reps. That might not be very, like, again, like I said, you're not even repeating tissue function. There's all this other stuff from the science side. That's why I understand what some of the strength guys are saying. But also on the opposite flip side of that, right? There's also a whole community of strength coaches that believe that they're just building general capacities for athleticism. And what they just think is like, you know, again, bigger, faster, stronger. And if we just kind of like the rising tide, if we do that for, you know, again, it doesn't matter what sport it is, 80% of their, you know, their workload is going to be the same between like general public, or maybe, you know, between sport to sport, 80% of their workload, not even workload, but like exercise selection, all those things should be generally the same. And then maybe the 20% of that is actually something that's a little bit more specialized. The only thing is you got to look at sport specific demand, and there's kind of a middle side of this, right? Because I don't think strength coaches should not see themselves as strength coaches or strength and conditioning. I would try to put you underneath the header of performance, right? Like you're a performance coach, and so you should be working together to you got to understand like specifically, especially within, you know, baseball or rotational sports like golf or hockey or something like that, right? Is specifically too, there's these constraints of the sport. And so if you, not only too, will you, like, they got to deal with asymmetrical loading, offset loading, all these things that are a little bit more specific to that sport. And also too, like the demand for rotation, and also rotation under certain time constraints, and how this all builds into performance, and also joint specific angles and all these other things. And so, again, it definitely gets blown out of proportion. But when we say things like, oh, you know, like sports specific, oh, I'll throw all that out the window, and then all these other people are just saying like, oh, well, yeah, you know, like they're like, I'm training sports specific, and like they're not very strong. And like if they were actually in your sport, like if they do some crazy thing on social media, and then if you were to actually put them in a sport, like they're not very strong and they can produce a lot of force and they're not performing at a high level, well, like both of those don't perform very well, right? So there's a middle ground of how I'm training and how I'm programming. And again, paying attention to like asymmetries that are built over time, you know, because of maybe the sport demand itself and how many times they're rotating one direction. These are all things we got to keep under consideration when we're programming and designing things like that.